How's it going?
Good. Hey, I want to let you know that that house, the lady that we talked to in class for one of those FISBOs
Yeah,
that we did, the
yeah.
house sold.
Oh, did it? Well,
She
good for
got a
them.
buyer, yeah.
Good for
Yeah,
them.
we drove past it yesterday and the first sale signs are down.
Well, did it sell or did they take the for sale signs down?
Pretty sure it probably sold.
So maybe it'd be worth a call, even a text, to see, because who knows? I mean, you're probably right. They probably did sell, but we don't know. We don't know, right?
That's true. Yeah, I can send her a text.
Yeah, and use a pretty quick text, and then Bob's your uncle. There you are.
Yeah.
Because it could have been because they took it off. They were tired of whatever, and we did leave it open, so you can start the conversation because we left it open that we'd contact him again, right? If
Right.
memory serves. So I always like to start those conversations off like, hey, as promised. Well, I guess not to start, but at least say like, as promised that I was going to reach out to you in a couple of weeks to see how things are going. I drove past it, saw that their sign was down. Um, I guess congratulations in order. Looks like you guys sold the property. So assume they sold it. If they hadn't sold it, then they'll tell you.
Oh,
If
that's
not,
true. They will.
just you giving them a high five for getting the property sold, and then remind them about the referral program
Oh, yeah.
to be front of mind, right? Because that's not something that most people are like paying attention to or looking for other people looking to sell, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, folks. All right. So I wanted to leave it open to a little Q&A, but also maybe go over some overcoming some objections too. So first and foremost, how's everyone going? I mean, oh, shout out to Frank. He just got a property under contract yesterday. So kudos, Frank the man. I think he's working right now, so he may be a little quiet. But what questions do you guys have that we can address, or would you guys rather just kind of go over some objections, or is there any objections you're kind of having, or challenges that you're facing that you want to talk about and see if we can figure out a solution? Because if you're having a problem, chances are other people are having the same problem. You know. Missed out. Any thoughts, questions? Okay, we'll dive into it. Well, what about objections, especially with seller financing? Okay, so if you remember last time, the discovering their pain points. So, like we talked about the week path last week on negotiating and getting the seller to accept your offer. If you do that first part right, where let me you guys co-host too, just so we don't someone doesn't stay in admin limbo. Actual co-host. Perfect. Okay. If we do we start the negotiations, or and we figure out their pain point with the carrot and the stick. What are they running away from? What are they running towards? If we can really get that and figure out those two things deeper than surface level, the objections will be very far in between, and you're going to prevent a lot of objections just from the get-go. The best way to handle objection is preventing it from ever happening. So when we connect our offer to the emotional needs of that person, the need to not feel like they're a failure, or need to know, just to have this thing off their back. They don't they too much stuff they worry about. They don't want to worry about this, and so that they and the offer so that they can get their own place again, or pay off the debt, or whatever it is, whatever you want that they're looking for. So if we do that right, those objections, there might be like just like, how does this work? So it's not necessarily objections, they'll have questions like, so I mean, do you pay me directly, or what happens? I mean, they're going to have those type of questions, but that's not necessarily objections, just a question, right? But objections, that's like can be like the worst case scenario. So, and the more and more you get better at presenting an offer, the more reps you put into it, the less of type of these less objections you're going to get. It's going somewhere. I had a thought in my head and just went away, but that's okay. Must not have been important. Yeah, so that's the best way to handle objections. Well, first of all, but and one thing, as you guys get more and more one-on-one conversations with people, as you start talking to more and more sellers, if you're getting the same objection again and again and again, it's not necessarily because everyone is worried about that. It's something that you're saying when you're talking to them is giving them that same vibe, that same concern. Because it's usually because we said something or did something a certain way, or something like that that makes them like, okay, wait, what if you don't make any payments on this, and you're getting on every single one, then it's like, okay, what am I saying, or how can I practice so that that's not a problem anymore? Does that make sense? So it's not so much like, everyone's worried about the market crashing or whatever. Um, okay, maybe they're not worried about the market crashing. Maybe there's something you're doing or saying that's giving them that vibe. And sometimes you're not actually saying anything, but it's just like, maybe it's your little bit of your body language. Maybe you're not sure, right? And that's okay to be not sure. But it's just a good indicator to, okay, I got to look at what I'm doing. Why is everyone saying the same thing every single time? Let's switch that up. And on the good note, you should be getting you would be pretty good at overcoming that objection, hopefully, if you're getting the same one again and again and again. Are there objections you guys are thinking of that, or have had, or thinking that they might have, that would be a concern for, that you would want to help? Like, how do I overcome that objection? How do I get over it? Is there anything that comes to mind, or do you want me, because I got a gazillion that I've heard and had to deal with, and well, not just a gazillion, a lot of the same ones, right? But which I should look at myself and see, why am I getting the same ones, right? But still, but those are kind of more of like questions about like more analytical, not analytical, but like, how does this work, kind of thing. What's give me some thoughts.
Mine's not an objection per se, but it's more of how do you, I guess in a way, sometimes I feel like I could be manipulative if I press on their pain points
Yeah.
too much or at all, or I mean, I kind of know I know human psychology, but is it unfair that we know it and they don't, or that we're using it and they aren't? Or, I mean, what's kind of your thoughts on that, Jared?
I had a very similar reaction when I first started learning this stuff. When you start learning Jedi mind tricks, it's like, is this morally and ethically right? Even though I could say I'm doing a Jedi mind trick, I mean, that should be reason enough to do anything. Then is it Jedi? Is it Sith? What am I doing here? Um, I like that a lot. So here, I think Woody gave a really good example on. So Woody Woodward, for those who don't know what I'm referring to, but he in one of his presentations for Saladio, he did an example of Walt Disney took one of his and Bruce, you might know this and be able to tell it better than me, but took out his buddy out to, or somebody new, to where they were going to build Disneyland, and is like, you need to buy all of these lots here. Trust me, you won't regret it. It's going to make you money. And he's like, I'm not going to buy lots out here. What are you talking about? Why would I do that? This is nothing. This is swampland. This is dumb. And so he didn't do it. And then he constructed Disneyland, and that guy could have made like millions, billions, or however much it would have been. If now, whose fault was that to not, and Woody asked this question, and I asked the same question. Whose fault was that the person pitching this idea that he should buy these lands Or is it the person that was receiving the message? Like the guy that, hindsight, he should have bought those properties. We made a lot of money, but he didn't. So whose fault was that? Was the person that pitched him the idea, or the person that was receiving the idea? Which one was it?
Well, fault.
Well, yeah. It was so that if Walt would have explained it in a different way, showed him the value, what he could be doing, painted his picture in a way where he could see it, he would have got it. So if Walt Disney in that scenario would have used some Jedi mind tricks a little bit, and just utilizing human psychology and helping him see the value of what's happening, what this could be. Did Walt Disney do anything unethical in that pretend story? And you can be, um, you can be as
It's actually not pretend. It really happened.
right. Yeah. But let's say what if Walt Disney did use he pitched it in a way where maybe he used the psychology tricks that we're learning here, or in other
Right.
books and things like that, right?
Right. And I was going to say, how dare you use that story of mine? It's not mine, but I teach Woody's presentation, and that's the story I
Right.
use. So
I
how dare you use
figured.
it against me?
And here's the thing, like, sometimes we're thinking like, yeah, if this guy would have put it on the market, he probably can get more for it. But it's the same scenario. Like, who here? There's what 11, 12 of us here. How many here either themselves or know someone that sold their car to a dealership? I have. Trade in or whatever, I would say most of us have done it, or at least have heard someone or know someone that has, right? Did any of us get top dollar for our vehicle when we sold it, whether that's through a trade in or just sold it in? Is anyone thinking that they actually got top dollar? No, not if we're honest with ourselves, no, because they got to make money too. There have to be spread on there. Has to be, But why would we do that? Because we any of us could go out and put it on Facebook Marketplace. We can go. There's the websites. We can list our cars, put a sign for sale sign on it, put it in a busy parking lot. Craigslist. All that, we can all do all that stuff. Meet with people, negotiate. Well, why on earth would we decide to sell our car at a discount to people that are notoriously unliked car dealership salespeople? I really have no problem with car dealerships, by the way, salespeople. But I'm just saying, like as a whole, they like wholesalers, they've earned their bad name. There's some really good salespeople. There's some really shady ones. And, they've earned their bad name, just like wholesalers. Like I said before, wholesalers have earned the bad name. And so why would we do that? Why would we sell a car at a cheaper discounted rate when we know we can do better somewhere else?
Easier. More practical.
More practical,
You don't
easier.
have to do as much work. You gotta guarantee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a guarantee. So we are making that decision because it's easier for us, because it's practical. We don't want to deal with the headache of negotiating, going back and forth, having people dig around with you, and it's like, yeah, I want to buy it, then they don't buy it, and you're like, oh my gosh, maybe it's time. Maybe they need to sell it. Maybe they need to get a new vehicle. They need to get the truck because of their work, and they have the sedan, and so it's like, I need to trade this in, but I'm using money from my sedan to help pay for the truck. So it could be time too, right? So it's it's all about just helping them getting through, because the sellers have these walls up, and when people are about to lose their homes, because there's auctions happen all the time, and people lose their home. It happens. They stay in they're living with their ex because they have divorced, but they have nowhere place to go, and because they need the funds from the house, and they're living in this terrible situation. And so when someone knocks on the door, they say, "Hey, I want to sell your house." No, you're I don't like your ugly face, and they shut the door or whatever, because they have those walls up. But if they can just get past their walls, then it allows them to say yes to the scenario. Like, I think it's manipulative when you're asking questions like the window salesman, for example, a leading question. I don't like those type of questions. For example, So like your Windows, you haven't updated Windows in a while. You don't, do you know the Windows save you 10% on energy bill? You want to save money on your energy bill, right? Well, yeah, of course I do. Okay, great. Then here's sign this paper. So you can sign. Well, hey, I don't want to buy Windows, but you said you wanted to save energy, right? So you're saving money by with your energy bill. That's what you said. I think that's a little bit manipulative, and that's like leading questions. But it's like, well, why would you want to update your Windows? Like, what's going on? Like finding out what their really needs are, because maybe they don't need. Maybe that's really not important to them right now. It's not something they need to do, and so people are in a state where they're here, but they need to be here, and even like auctions happening next week, and they're still just kind of. I know maybe you guys heard my story where I've had people say I'll take my chances with the auction. That's the mindset. There's no chances. You just lose the home. The auction is like whether the bank holds the title or this new investor holds the title. That's the auction. There's no chances for you. Chances for you is the same chance you're just out on the street. That's all it is. It's just a matter of what name's on the paperwork when they kick you out. That's the only difference. That's your chances of changing the name. That's it. And your name's not on it. So it's all about like getting past their barriers. There's mental blocks. People do things all the time. I do things all the time that I'm like, oh, I really shouldn't have done that. Why do I keep doing that dumb thing or whatever, right? So it passes. Rachel, you were about to say something, right?
Well, I just wanted to also add to your brilliant answer, Jared, that um, some other things that you've taught us too. Like, so Bruce, if you're if you feel like you're
Manipulating.
manipulate people, yeah, people don't people believe what we want to believe, and it's because we may not know enough otherwise, and we as real estate investors know more than the homeowner. And so if you're asking the questions, about what will happen if you stay in your house, well, what will happen if you take your chances with the auction, what happens, what does that mean to you, then you can help them understand, because you are ultimately trying to help them. And the same, like, I was going to bring the avatar into it too. That's one of the big reasons, in my understanding, why we chose an avatar, is so that we could change our perspective and on how we're looking at the situation. The avatar helps us see that we are truly helping people, not manipulating them into giving us a good deal. Because if you look at what's going to happen if they continue on this road of not paying their payments in full, then you know that they're going to get kicked out. And so, just like with your kids, sometimes you have to manipulate your kids, I would imagine, into doing whatever you want them to do because it's best for them. So just
Facts.
kind of different perspectives. Sorry, that's all I wanted to add.
That kid point, that's a really good one, actually. Like that. I didn't put that together. But I manipulate my kids all the time, like unapologetically too. Like it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because you know what they need and they don't. Same with the
Hmm.
homeowners. They just don't have our same knowledge or
Right.
understanding.
Well, and that makes sense. It almost seems like it comes down to intent. If the intent is to do harm, whether that's physically, mentally, verbally, whatever it is, then, and I guess you could argue intent either as well. But if you are intending on doing something negative, then you could land in manipulation. But if what you're trying to do is open their mind to options they didn't have before and do it in a way that they understand it, like you mentioned in Woody's situation, um, then it's not necessarily manipulation. It's you're just trying to give information so that they can make the best decision. Because in the end, it is their decision.
Hmm. Yeah, spot on, exactly. So and it's like it's the Jedi mind it's a Jedi mind trick. So yeah, I think that intent is a big factor, whether it's Jedi mind trick or your Sith manipulating. So it's just a matter of what side you're doing it on, right? Because there, sadly, there's investors out there. There's people that have screwed me out of tens of thousands of dollars by lying, cheating, and by being dishonest. Um, and I don't do deals with that person, and I don't like blast them out or anything. But it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna associate myself with that person anymore, um, or give any good recommendations for if someone asks me. But it's it's all about like what's our intent? Are we trying to help someone, or are we just trying to use these strategies to manipulate and to get them where they? So I guess it can be used manipulation. So I think you nailed it right there, Bruce. It's I think a big chunk of it is intent. So, and the thing is, the people that do manipulate and that do dishonest things, that they're intending to, like they're right straight up front lying to the person, and they're saying one thing but doing another. They don't last long in the business. Like they can make some money in for a couple of years, but from my personal experience, a lot of them don't last. And but unfortunately, there's people to pick up their spot when they either
Right.
go to jail or leave. But still, so it's just like it's sad it happens, but yeah, I know I'm trying to help my avatar, as Rachel brought up, right? I'm gonna help my Maria, and to give them the best options. And if they want to go with me, awesome. If they don't, that's okay too. I wish them the best. I'm gonna follow up with them, but I wish them the best.
And if you're worried
And-
about it, you're not one of those people. You're not a. I mean, we're
Right,
into that
right,
anyway,
I can
exactly.
appreciate. No, I can appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
a good thought. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, those people are not out there going, I hope I'm not doing something bad. I shouldn't be judgmental, but
Yeah.
that's what I would think.
Well, I mean, it's true.
No, I
I
get
mean,
that. I can appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, me and Frank dealt with someone that was just like he was a liar, and he was, he had one of my properties under contract, and his lies were, he sucked at lying. Like, if you're gonna lie, like, at least be good at it. I mean, come on. It was just really bad. Like the title company, like, got off the phone, like, I had the weirdest conversation with this guy I've ever had in my life. This is really weird. And they've done tens of thousands of transactions, and they were like, this guy's interesting. Like, okay, so yeah, I don't think he asked himself that question, if he's manipulating anyone, or if he's or him lying to anyone else is bad. So yeah, it's a narcissist never asks, and I'm not saying that there's a narcissist, but the same suit. A narcissist never asks themselves, "Am I a narcissist?"
Right. Right.
Yeah, and don't forget, if we as wholesalers are not making money on these properties that we're working for, spending our time doing, then we have to go find money somewhere else to pay our bills. So again, even that, all this stuff I've been through too, I mean, it worried me too, but if we're not making money, then we have to go make money to pay our own bills somewhere else. And we can't be out there helping these people. So we are truly
Right.
a blessing to these people. We are truly helping them. Whether they understand that is a different story, but you really are helping them.
Right. And if they don't understand it, it's our fault. Because we haven't honed in on the skills to get past those walls, and it's okay. We understand why they have the walls up. They've been tough time. Like, a lot of them, like, are in a very bad time, maybe even the worst time of their lives, when we're talking to them. And bringing up things that hurts their pride about, losing your job, or about to lose your home, when you were a very good provider, and then something happened, bad luck, bad choices, whatever. And now they have to deal with that. And talking to Bruce, even though that's going to hurt even though I need Bruce's help, like, desperately, my situation would be 10 times better talking to Bruce. But because of those walls I put up there to try to protect myself, the organ in your brain, your brain organ, is there to not to keep you happy, healthy, and wealthy, is to keep you alive, to run away from pain and go towards pleasure. And so, coming to terms with my pride and how I have not done as well as I wanted, as providing and paying the bills, or whatever it is. Those are also walls people that put up naturally, and they don't even recognize that they're doing it. They just tell themselves a story that Bruce is an evil person. He's just trying to steal my equity, and blah blah blah. And so this is the sheer fact, because we not using these strategies to get past those, is leaving our avatar, that person, in a terrible state, just because we're not manipulating, we're not using the Jedi mind tricks on them, right? Let's figure out a way where we can help them and get past that. So yeah, I like that. That's a good question too. I think, especially when we're getting deeper and deeper into, like, negotiating, and like how to present offers, where we're talking about the emotional needs versus, like, just numbers. because I've been plenty of offers when it was just like, this is the number that makes sense. Does that make sense for you? And I've gotten deals and didn't get deals doing that way. But it's always like by far most effective when it's like, this is my, or find out their needs and then sandwiching the offer in between. So that was a really good question, Bruce. Man, we were going on for like 15 minutes. That was awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other good questions? Now you have to ask a better one this time. No, just kidding. Try to follow that. What other questions do we have?
I was going to say, I don't have a question, but you had mentioned that you have a lot of some of the same objections or things like that. I was wondering if maybe if no one else has any other questions, maybe you could go over just the most common non-questions but actual objections that you get. Because if you're getting them with everything you do, I'm sure we'll run upon them if we don't already.
Oh, sure.
I'm just having trouble finding people to sell me something, let alone get to the objection part. So I'm sure we would all love to hear, though. If no one else has
absolutely. So this is the formula in general to overcome objections, and then we'll use it. Then I'll give some specific examples, and then we'll show how each step. Okay. The formula overcoming objection is acknowledge. Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Oh, good. Okay, I'm glad. Yeah, I was actually gonna talk about this next. So whatever, you're acknowledging, and you're like kind of like give them a little pat in the back a little bit, like, oh, good. I'm glad you asked that question. So we're acknowledging them, and you can even repeat their objection too using active listening, right? Oh yeah, I'm really glad you asked that. What happened if I stop making payments, right? That could be that is one of the objections that kind of come up, or as I'm questioning that comes up, right? What happens if you don't make payments? What's the worst case scenario? You're like, I'm really glad you asked that question, about what happens if we stop making payments, right? Of course, you should be concerned with that, because that is a possibility that can happen. I don't know the future. I can just disappear. Who knows, right? So acknowledge their concern, so they feel heard, because that handles like at least 60% of the challenge right there. They just need to feel heard. Acknowledge, address, and then ask a question and move on. Asking a question and move on, whatever the next step is. Or so for example, let's just say on the objection, and I'll put it into full context, and I'll label each of as I do this, right? So objection is like, what happens if you stop making payments on the self-financing deal? Hey, I'm so glad you asked that question. In fact, other people have asked me the same thing when we do deals like this. So I acknowledge the question, and also another little tactic is kind of put in, other people have had the same question, so they feel like, oh yeah, I'm asking good questions. Like I'm not letting him get away with stuff, or whatever. And other people ask the same thing, so I feel good. But also, it's also telling them that other people have done deals like this with me. So that's just another little tidbit. So you can say other people have the same questions, or other people that we've done deals with, or if you haven't any. Say we disappear and we go to Mexico, we just disappear, go to China. What we can do is we'll create a document called deed in lieu of foreclosure. Basically, what that means is if we stop payments, and it can be whatever we agree upon. So if let's just say that for more than 45 days late on the payment, the deed in lieu of foreclosure is almost like a guillotine hanging over my neck. If I am later than 45 days, I have forfeited my rights to the foreclosure process, which is timely and expensive. And that document falls down because it's being held by an escrow company that we're paying the payments to. And so they will just transfer the title over to you. And so remember that $30,000 we talked about, the down payment and the repairs we're doing. So you would actually keep all that money, you get the property back, and then you would be able to resell it. Or if I have a renter in there, you just got a property back, plus the payments I made, plus the down payments, all the repairs I made. I have all of that you would get. So it's not in the business to, if anything, it's the worst case scenario is you make more money. So closing on Wednesday, do you want it this Wednesday or the following Thursday? So acknowledge, address, ask a question, whatever the next step is. Anything with any objection, if you act like it's a big deal, it's a big deal. If you don't, then it's not a big deal. They might have more questions after that, like me asking, like, okay, do you want to close Wednesday or Thursday? And then it's like, okay, but what about blah blah blah? Oh yeah. Then you the same thing, because they might have questions about what we just said, like deed in lieu foreclosure, like that. I kind of threw out some big words there, so they're like, okay, wait a minute, hey, what does that exactly mean? And so you can address that, but then again, you're asking the next question, move on. Rachel, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Thanks. Yeah. So someone said, I don't know where I heard it, if it was when I was on the phone with a title company or another investor. I don't know where I heard it, but someone said recently that everybody, when you say deed in lieu of foreclosure, I understand. Well, maybe I understand what that means. That means that instead of having to go through the foreclosure process, you just have to give back the deed, and that's what's written in the contract. So you don't get like the 3 months to move out or whatever it is, or 3 months. But someone told me that everybody gets foreclosure no matter what. Can you tell me what they're talking about, or what the difference is?
Everyone gets foreclosure no matter what. What does that mean?
Sorry, if no matter how the contract is written, you still would have to be foreclosed on. Like, I guess my question is,
well,
how would the contract make it different?
It's the definition, right? So it's like we were talking with Bruce on title. Like, it doesn't necessarily show that there was a foreclosure, but it shows like so it's like it uses different words, but it's the same thing. It's the same, like it's notice of sale was done on this loan, right? So it is, I guess technically a foreclosure happens, but as far as like the process goes, it's gonna be instantly, because I've already signed out my rights to go through all that process.
So if I was, let's say that I was a person that, I just was saying, I don't care that I haven't paid this bill. I'm going to make them get rid of me, even though it says in my contract.
Yeah.
So how is it different in that situation versus a regular non-real estate investor homeowner being foreclosed upon?
What do you mean by you make me? So I missed that first part when you're saying like
maybe I'm misunderstanding. So it's probably the problem is probably on my end. But okay, so in my mind, if you get foreclosed on, the bank, whoever owns has that you owe money to, they have to go through the process through the courts. Maybe that's the difference. They have to go through the courts and send you all these documents and you have a certain amount of time and et cetera. They can't just come to your house and be like, you didn't pay your bill last week, get out, and move out for you. What's the difference in the bank doing that whole process and the deed in lieu of foreclosure? Because in my mind, it sounds like you don't have to go through all that long process of getting me, the real estate investor who basically is a default on your payments. What's the difference, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, between the foreclosure, where you have the long process that the bank does to get rid of the homeowner, and me with deed in lieu of foreclosure? Now, like, how do you get rid of me and get your house back? Like, how is that where the difference is?
Yeah. So yeah, it's the process and time frame too, right? So if I'm me as an investor, if I'm making payments to the escrow company and I just disappear, okay, the escrow company is usually the title, or they're connected to the title company, so they have that document of the deed in lieu foreclosure. Okay, so they have that, like, when these terms are met, if Jared doesn't do this or does this, then the title goes back over to this person's name. So they would have to request that to happen. So like give it the title company, it's the documents, here's what we got to do. And then the title company will probably reach out, but then within a matter of a week or so, depending on the title company and the state, I'm sure there's a little bit differences, but they can transfer that title over. Now, let's just say if I'm living in the property and I have a deed in lieu foreclosure, sure, they can get back the title quickly, but they would still have to go through the traditional eviction process to get me out. If I'm living in the property or have assets there or whatever, then there is that part of it, as far as. But with most of these scenarios, it's like where I'm not living in it, right? And so it's just like it's an investment property. We're fixing it up, and whatever I'm ready from the mob and it's disappear. Okay, here's the house, right? And so there should be no one living there, hopefully, unless the squatter popped up. But it'd be basically if they have any rights, to be squatter rights, if anything, and they go through the foreclosure process. So if it's in California, good luck. But some other states are not so great. But to answer that question, so it's the time frame, the process is a little bit different, but it because we're foregoing the rights, all the processes the banks have to do to foreclose on a property, we're foregoing those rights.
And basically that works for the homeowner or the seller because
It's worse for
typically
us.
we're not moving in. Right, right. No, I totally do
Mhm.
understand that. I guess,
Yeah.
but the biggest difference is that since we don't live there, it takes a lot less time to get the homeowner their property back.
Right. Yes. Correct.
Okay, got it.
Well, that's part of it. Yeah. But not even to go through the waiting time, because if foreclosure happens, like if they send a notice of default, and then it's usually like 90 days before that, then they have an auction date, and that's like 60 or 6 weeks out from that time, and then that can be pushed out because for whatever reason they have to get an attorneys involved, and then after the auction has finally happened, then they have to they still have like 30 days to evict or something like that. So it the banks have to, like, if they go fast, I've seen it years. Like I've seen scenarios, and it blows me away, where it's like maybe it's a small bank or whatever, they're not really on the foreclosures. So like I met people like, I've made a payment in like 2 years. Like, okay, yeah, I'm not joking. And so it's very interesting. So it forgoes all of that waiting period time. It cuts off 3 to 5 months of the whole
3 to 5
process.
months because you're not doing the notice of default and all
Right.
that kind of stuff before you can
Mhm.
actually make it. So if we were living in the house,
Yeah.
let's say we're the kind of real estate investor where we buy a house and live there for a few months while we fix it and then we flip it and then we stop paying the bills. So we are
Sure.
living there.
Right.
But even then, the bank can literally just skip those 3 to 6 months of
Well,
all
it's
the
not the bank, it's the seller, right? But yeah, but same thing, right? If the deed in lieu foreclosure happens, right? I guess they're in the position of the bank. So yeah, I guess you're right.
that's what I meant. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
they
Yeah.
don't have to take the time that it takes legally and go through all those
Right.
loopholes or whatever you call them. Not loopholes, you know what I'm saying,
Mhm.
jump the hurdles or whatever
Right. The waiting
so they can
periods and all
save
that
3
stuff.
to
Yeah.
6 months. They save 3 to
Mhm.
6 months and get their house back sooner
Right.
that way
Exactly.
because okay, got it. Thank you for explaining that. Sorry to
No, it's good. And those questions are great, guys, because then people may ask you that same question. And it's like, and again, a good catch-all is like, that is a really good question. I mean, I know I have an answer for you, but I don't want to gum it up. Is it okay? Can we, next time we meet, can I address it then? I just need to ask my one of my mentors or one of my business partners. I think they'll be able to. I have a question too about that too, so we'll address it then. So like, that was a long way of me saying I don't know, but I'll find out. Like, that is a great, just I don't know, but I'll find out is a great catch-all. So don't worry if you don't know all the ins and outs of like seller financing or whatever. That's okay. And if you don't know all the answers, that's okay too. That doesn't mean it can be a deal breaker for most people, right? But after you find out, like, you're gonna know. So you won't have that problem again. Uh, great. So great question. Okay, so like in that scenario with the deed in lieu foreclosure, so I and that's one way. And again, I don't necessarily throw out the deed in lieu foreclosure as like every single conversation I have with people. Like, it's only when I need to that I throw it out there, because it's worse for the investor. For the person that's going to buy the wholesale deal, they're going to have to deal with the deed in lieu foreclosure. Now we're going to make it so that plenty of time. If you're late, then like 60 days, 45 days, then like you got bigger issues than just that, right? Um, then there's like what is the other one? Then okay, um, so address, or excuse me, acknowledge, address, and then ask the next question, right? So that's phenomenal. Another way to overcome that objection. So if they're like worried about that you're not going to make any, what happens if you stop making payments? And like, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Someone I helped the other day asked the exact same question. And so, do you remember how we talked about kind of the stuff that I would have to do to this property to kind of for my goals? I'm going to flip it. That we have to put in, over $60,000 just in repairs to fix up this property, and you were looking to get some money down, and so like that down payment of $30,000, we would also be putting down. So if in worst case scenario, if I'm not in the business to pay someone $30,000 and invest another $60,000 only for only to not make a $2,000 payment. So are you open to closing on, or would you oppose to closing on this following Wednesday, or Friday would be better for you? So I'm not in the business, like everything that we talked about, and I guess it can come off snarky depending how you do it. So make sure your tonality is right. But like, yeah, I'm not in the business to drop in a down payment plus the repairs just to not make a $2,000 payment for you to take, for you to close on me and I lose everything. And then so you can kind of start off with the objection like that. But again, if you don't act like it's a big deal, it's not a big deal. Like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, why would you put 90 grand into a property just not to make a $2,000 payment?
That does make a lot of sense because, if you think about it from the seller's standpoint, not a real estate investor
Exactly.
standpoint, the seller is thinking, well, maybe he won't be able to make this, $2,000 or $3,000 payment or whatever. They're not even thinking about all the other money that you put into it.
Exactly.
So when you do highlight that, I think that can turn on a light bulb in their brain.
Right. No, absolutely. And if they're still worried about it, then you bring up the deed in foreclosure. You can, again, these are just tool belt tools that you can just throw out there when you need. You have these audibles that you're ready to go, and the first time you say it, it's probably not going to be very smooth, not very great, and that's okay, right? But as long as you get the idea across. And there's just so many times where I explain seller financing, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Like, I have no idea. Can you? Like, my bad. I didn't explain it good enough. Or let's. I is good in grammars. Let me talk. So, and like re-explain it or whatever, right? So that's just going to happen, right? Okay, any questions about the formula just in general, like overcoming objections? It's the same scenario with objection of like when you're doing cold calls, and this is the same formula that it's in the Renaissance Education. We're looking at Chris Albin, and in his Still the Decade class, he says in there, he gets the script, and to overcome objection, like, how'd you get this number? And in his objections, that's a great question. I get my lead sources from all sorts of places. I'd be more than happy to take a look for you. But is this property for sale? He did it. He follows that formula. And I still use that same audible. People ask me about how to get this phone number. Yeah, I got leads from all sorts of places. I can check. But is this property for sale? We're just asking the next question. What's the next step? What are we doing? Like you know, um, whatever the next one is, right? Whatever the following step is. If we we hold on it or we sit on it, and then let me phrase that. I liked asking the next question so I don't let them linger on it, because then you're not acting like it's a big deal and then they can move on, right? Any other questions or any objections? I have more that people will typically ask, but what are some other thoughts or other concerns you guys might have or thinking? Because that's probably the biggest one too, right?
Yeah, about what happens if you don't make the payment. What other objections do you get, Jared?
So one objection is like, I need a down payment. I need a big enough down payment. I need to buy my other house. I'm going to pay off my other house. So they like, you're trying to get seller financing, for example, and or maybe there's just not enough equity in the property, right? Or, but like in this one, for example, so if and this doesn't happen too often, but it does come up now and again. So for example, like, hey, I get you want to do the seller financing. It makes sense. Getting the payments sounds nice, but I really I want to pay off this debt, this loan that I got, and that's a big reason why I'm doing this whole thing. So that's why I want to pay off this other property that I have, and then I don't have to worry about it. And then oh, that's a great question. Can I ask you something? And a lot of times another way of overcome objections is just asking lots of questions, right? So that's a great question. Let me ask you. So, if can I ask you some questions about that loan, if you don't mind? Like, well, yeah, sure, yeah, whatever. If like, what kind of payments is that? Are you having on there? What's the interest rate? So you find out their interest rate and payments on that loan that they want to pay off, and it's like, okay, cool. Well, what if, because that's a big concern for you is to get that paid off, not don't worry about those payments or anything like that at all. What if I effectively make those payments for you? Well, what do you mean? Well, because I'm gonna be making payments to you, and it's gonna be XYZ. It's gonna be $2,000, and your payment that you're looking at is X amount, and you're charging me more interest than what they're charging you. You're actually making money on their money on doing this. So if my payments to you is 2,000, and that payment that you're trying to get rid of is 1,000, you're still up $1,000 a month, and I would be effectively I'm not actually making the payment, but because of the interest, half of that is going to be interest anyway. So I'm making the payments for you, and that allows me to buy this property at the price that you were looking at, and also so that we can get past so we can continue to so you get the price you need, and also so I can actually finance this property. Um, if you were able to get if I was able to make those like effectively make those payments for you and in the interests, would that be something that would be helpful? Or how would you feel if you didn't have to worry about those payments anymore, be made every single month, or whatever the scenario may be, right? So that doesn't come up very often, but that's another way. Is like, well, what if I make those payments for you effectively? Don't actually make the payments, but like, you show them like your payment is this, their payment is that, and you're charging me a lot more interest on it, so you're actually making more money than the bank is, if that makes sense.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Do you hate Thursday and Friday because I'm here? I bet
No.
you must.
No.
Okay.
That's a
I
good
have
question.
so many questions. So something always bothers me a little bit about, and I know why you do it, and I totally agree. You'll say like you just said. So he told you he wants to pay off this jet ski with his house
Right.
payment. Okay.
Right.
And you're like, well, if I could effectively make those payments for you because you may be getting your house payment plus this much extra, that would be included. I understand all that, but then just wondering, is there a difference? Because I hear you say this a lot. Me, I would rather say, would that work for you? But you always say, how would that make you feel? And
Mhm.
I'm not criticizing you. Please don't take it that way.
I don't think you
Totally
are
look up to
criticizing,
you.
so you're good.
Okay, good. So I just always wonder, like, I feel like the person's gonna be like, well, freaking duh, you idiot. I just told you that. Like, so I'm just wondering, is there a psychological reason why you use that phraseology? That's my question.
I want them in emotion or problem solution thinking than price thinking. So if I'm just talking numbers, I'm in a different mindset and what the way I'm trying to solve this problem. There's a reason why when we go to emotional based thinking and problem solving based thinking, where we're like, this it is $200,000 less than you were asking, but guess what? This solves every single problem that you're having. Well, not, well, like this solves the biggest problems you're having right now in your life. Wouldn't that be
Okay.
worth it? If you so it's like so it doesn't turn they stop thinking about, okay, I wanted 6, but you're selling it to me for 400, but it does fix those problems that I really that if I would have sold at 6 would have fixed anyway. So it kind of fits, and I can close now, and I see like there's a feeling for it. So using words like how would that make you feel, and or how do you feel if I did something like if I made those payments for you effectively, right? So it is a little bit different than just like paying it off, right? But it's like how if you didn't have to worry about that, like what would that make you feel?
Okay, so basically what I'm hearing is, here's my active listening. What what I'm
Yeah.
hearing is that you're saying that instead of saying would that work for you, which was my thinking,
Mhm.
using the phrase that you're using makes their mind go to a more emotional place, much more
Yes.
so than what I said. Okay, thanks. That's all I
Mhm.
needed. That's what I was asking. Thank you.
Right. Um, another way of doing that would be asking no if you don't like doing the or not necessarily like but not prefer like the feeling question. Another way of hitting it is just do a no orientated question. So would it be crazy if I made those payments for you? But I think I probably would still like, no, that wouldn't be crazy. It'd be awesome. Like, okay, cool. Well then let's do that. You know? Um but I think I probably would follow up with a how does that make you feel statement or something along those lines. Um,
So, Jared, do you mind if
yes,
I pop in?
please, please.
Um, I was curious, Rachel, what your drive was. Do you know what your drive is?
Okay, I'm really still trying to figure out, but I'm almost certain I'm a intellectual relator.
Yeah, right there. That's your key. And the reason I say that is because most intellectuals do not operate on feelings.
Mm. Well, that's so
They are
weird because
they
I
are
feel
more like and it's almost staunch, like knowledge,
systems.
learning, right? Systems, those kind of things. And
Okay.
in fact, I'm a validator intellect. So I do have somewhat of the emotional side, but as an intellect, I don't want to manipulate people, right? So in a way, you're kind of asking the same question I asked earlier
Okay.
because
Interesting.
I had my brother coming into Renatus, and the first thing he said about those meetings that we have, he's like, I just don't like all that feely stuff. You know, how do you feel? What do you feel about this? How do you feel? Well, he's an intellect, so
Right.
it's
That makes sense.
just a caricature or a character, not caricature. It's a character of
Characteristic.
intellectuals. They're not into the feely stuff, even though they might be, right? That might be their secondary, but
Yeah,
they
even if
really
you're a
want that
relator.
knowledge. Right. They really want the knowledge. They really want the learning, that kind of thing. That's why it's somewhat so difficult to ask those
Mhm.
Okay,
questions.
thanks. That helps a lot, Bruce. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And when you get the feel when they're asking like those specific like detailed questions about like how this whole process works, like I will go down and I mean like okay this is intellectual like I can get you get that feel at the very least if you don't want to throw out the cards like in a meeting with, which wouldn't be a bad idea to be honest, but if you're like on the phone whatever they may be difficult, but if you're getting a feeling of like intellectual, like me asking those feeling questions, like it does that almost be a turnoff too, but I will go into like deep details of what, like for seller financing, for example, if I'm talking to Bruce, he's intellectual and he doesn't know anything about seller financing. And I just say, hey, this seller financing, it'll solve your these emotional problems. You're like, well, that's cool, but how does that happen? Like, what do you mean? What's the catch? What's this? What's this? And then breaking it down to so it almost does kind of a little bit go back to like the numbers a bit, but it's more like in the process showing the back office, not actually showing the back office, but showing them the exact process. And if I can, if it's on a Zoom or if I'm there in person, I will draw it out for them too. Like, so this is your payment is this. You're gonna make payment over to the escrow company. The escrow company is gonna do this, this, and this. If I mess up, this is what happens. And then this is the people that you can talk to. After we close, if you do have a question or whatever, and then you paint that whole picture, and that'll kind of speak to their intellectual side too. But
And that,
doing that to people that aren't intellectual will some if you just volunteer that information will kill the deal because then they go into numbers, not emotional based resolution
number crunching,
or
they're crunch.
exactly right. So
Yeah, and Jared is absolutely right. And because the drive system does, it's basic. What makes people feel important, right? And you are helping them to feel that their decision is going to be important to them, right? It is an important decision, and you're making them feel or helping them feel important because you're actually addressing it how they would address it.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And actually showing the numbers and being transparent if you can with your numbers or whenever it
We're
actually,
intellectuals.
yeah,
but it also addresses what you were asking earlier, Bruce, about manipulation and that sort of thing. I feel like if you're transparent with your numbers, it's easier for people to understand that you're not manipulating them and for you to know
Right.
that you're not manipulating.
And especially for intellects, right? Especially for those who want that knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's only intellects because executives are similar. They want to know that they're going to win. They want to know they got control. They want to know, well, how do they feel that importance? By understanding how they're going to feel that control or how they're going to win or how they're going to, so yeah.
Knowing that they're not wasting their money, knowing that they're making proof that they're getting a good purchase.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly. It's less emotional. And that's not a bad, you want to hit that emotion side, just like Jared said, you want to hit that emotion side. But the emotion side for intellects and executives are about the information, not necessarily like validators and relators and directors. If you hit directors with touchy feely stuff like that, sometimes they won't even. But if you're talking about freedom and creativity and how they're going to be able to go on to their next piece and experience their next part of their life because you're able to come in and help, that's how they talk. That's their love. That's their
which is why it's so important to, before you even give an offer, is to find out what their pain point is, because then you can kind of get like, oh yeah, if I can do this, then I would go on this trip, you know? And so like, it's not, maybe not so much like, well, how would you feel if you were going on that trip that you always wanted to go on, but you didn't have the funds to do it? If you made an extra $50,000 here in this deal, what would that be? Would that be possible? Would that make it worth it to you? And so even if you don't know anything about the drive system, there's a few of us that are on this call that may not. But even if you don't know anything about the drive system, it's just, if you are paying attention to what they're saying to you, you will naturally kind of fill in their drive automatically, whether you know anything about the drive system anyways. The few detail, the like maybe like intellectual, you might want to go into like knowing that is good, because then you know you need to go into the details. But other than that, it's not like when I first started out, I would, because I'm an executive validator. So like Bruce says, yeah, like I want to win, I want to be in control, and I can be in control if I know all the steps. If I know everything that's about it, I'm in control. That's control is very, very big for me, and winning is very big for me. So like yeah. So when I first started, I would show all of my numbers, and I would tell people, and I was so transparent. I lifted the hood up from my business, and like, I'm going to put $13,000 in that kitchen. I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And that's why my offer is this. It made it very difficult for them to negotiate against the number, because like, that was like I gave them my highest and best from the get-go. But it only worked on, 40% of the people, because but it put them in number based. And then when I got the different training on the sales and going more the emotional, more asking more questions, then it was just like it exploded, right? So whether it was like initially just for the drive system alone, or it's just all about emotional based, and paying attention and using those same words that they use is very, very key, right? Because we have our own Rolodex of words we like to use. We have the same words again and again and again. We just typically use. And so sometimes we like to, they say, like, let's just say excellent. Excellent is one of my favorite words, right? Let's just say excellent. And then I'm talking to Natalie, and one of her words is like fantastic, right? It's so small. It's just tiny. But if she says, yeah, I'd feel fantastic. And they're like, yeah, yeah. So that you can feel excellent and be able to go on that trip you're looking for, it doesn't hit the same. It really doesn't. So we're paying attention, and I'm using, because she said fantastic, I'm going to say the words fantastic. If she says, yeah, I don't see myself doing this, or I'm not seeing, if they're using sight words, I'm going to use sight words. Do you see how this would be something that would work for you? Do you see how this would help you in an XYZ situation? If they're using like, I don't think, you can also, well, do you think that this would, do you think if you had this, that'd make you feel, or how would that make you feel if you had this, or so like, just small stuff like that, like understanding how they think by paying attention to what they say, because everyone will tell you what drive they are, what mode that they're thinking in through their language. So if we pay attention to that, and the best way to do that is to practice in every day, just like what you do, Rachel. Like I did a presentation yesterday, and to a bunch of other NADA students, and I just use examples as far as like practicing in your daily life. These type of techniques is like the mirroring technique. Like you do it, and so when you get to the point when you're talking to the seller, you don't even think about it. You just do it. And so when you're paying attention, if I'm paying attention to what Bruce is talking, I mean, we're just buddies, we're chatting, and yet I'm talking to him and to his drive. I'm also talking about, like, he's always saying about sight words, or I'm gonna talk back to him in a similar language, and our connection will skyrocket. Not only am I talking to his drive, I'm talking to him in his language that means something. Fantastic means those excellent, fantastic. The definition is basically the exact same thing, but to Natalie, it just means something different. It doesn't hit home, because when she had the best day of her life, she heard someone say this is fantastic, and it just or that was the word that she used, and for her it just like, oh, fantastic, whatever, you know. I think I'm mixing it up, but you know what I mean. It just means something different. And this is all subconscious. Yes, exactly. Yes. In other words, yep. In other words, you're just paying attention, right? And sometimes, like when I'm talking to people, like remember I said, guys, like you're when you're negotiating people, having a notepad with you, or even your phone on notes. Like I got my little Ben phone here, but I'll 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 have it up, and I'm writing stuff down as they're talking, you know. And so it's like if I'm hearing a bunch of sight words, or I'm feeling like, okay, I think this might be an intellectual, like I'll just write I or like sight, and then that reminds me to go back to that too. If it's on the phone or Zoom, that's a lot easier because he's kind of doing the side. Maybe they don't notice or whatever, but still. And people, I have never had anyone's challenge. Like they might look at, you might want to see what I'm doing. Like I don't care. They can see whatever. They can't read my handwriting anyways. It's like chicken scratch. It doesn't matter. So it's a great tool to use the right words on how we're talking to them. It's just paying attention and getting to make them feel important, right? We have iPhone 3. I'm not sure who that is, but makes the other person feel comfortable and available to open up when using. Oh, it's Saul. Okay, I see your picture. Never mind. Makes it available to open up when using the same. Yep, exactly. They just feel heard. They feel like this person gets me. So like the scenario, it's like these people they have all these walls up. They're hurt. They have their pride. You guys had the situations. I know you've been in places where people have you just connected with that person so quickly, right? I mean, I generally felt that with Bruce. Like I just instantly liked Bruce when I first met him years ago, and we're both validators. You know, we're not our first our top two is validators, so we instantly kind of got that like we're talking to each other similar language, whether we realize it or not. And so it was easy to build a connection with Bruce because we have that connection. That's already it's naturally inherently there. And I can have that same connection with other people if I pay attention to what they're saying, what drives them. Yep. No, you're and Sal, that's a great, yeah, good point. I like that in the comments there. Oh cow, it's already 12 o'clock. Okay. Well, sweet guys, awesome. Any last comments, thoughts, questions? What is any feedback? No, we're good. Okay.
Where are the
another message.
recordings from?
I
last-
do. Sorry, I was driving.
Oh no, you're good.
And I feel bad because I came on late. I was
Mhm.
talking to someone. I talked to somebody about a house, drove around the corner, saw some kid working on the house, so I stopped to talk to him. That's why I didn't get on time.
Well, I'd rather you do that to be on this call. So yeah, that's phenomenal. Great job.
Now listening to you guys, I just realized I did not do the very first question, which is his passion or, whatever.
Yeah.
So how do you go back to that? Do you know what I mean? I talked to him about the quadrant and all of this other stuff.
What is the goal to buy the house or to what's the goal for this person?
This person, like I said, it was random. So I think it will now be,
Because it's about a house,
it
right?
will be originally it's his father-in-law's house that the father-in-law wants to keep renting. So, but this kid is really entrepreneurial. I think he would be great in Renata's. So I guess that is different
Okay.
now. It's not necessarily the house.
Right.
Oh, he can help me with future houses now.
Mhm.
So
Right. Well, you can say things. So he's interested in getting real estate, or you just feel he'd be really good at it. He has entrepreneur mindset. And everything.
he is interested in it. He's
Okay.
interested in business ownership and investing.
So it would like going deep into like what drives them, and I feel like that's not necessarily like the first conversation subject, right? So I don't think you missed the boat by any means, but it's like when you're sitting down with them, we actually sit down and chat, right? And sometimes that can happen the first time. It's just situation. You got no one's in a rush, and you can sit down and chat for a while. Cool, awesome, go ahead. But yeah, going back to them is easy enough. It's just like I need to apologize. I was going to tell you something. I totally forgot to tell you. Um, my company does like a referral fee or whatever it is. You tell them the referral fee or
Right.
whatever, or you can say like, hey, listen, I'm looking for some help on doing some deals. People for time for dollars and other things like that. Uh, when would it be crazy if we jumped on a phone call for like 30 minutes and just see if we were a good fit? If because you mentioned that you were interested in getting involved into real estate, or you'd be interested in learning more about it. Would it be crazy if we just jumped on a call for like 30 minutes or so? Would that be crazy? So something like that, that's something that's a direction I would go in, right? But you can, and even still asking people's passion, if you're going that route too, it's like if you're asking that particular question, like even people that I've known forever, I'll say like, you know what, I feel bad. I've known you for 20 years and I don't know what your passions are, man. Can you forgive me and just help me understand. So other than work and family, what are you most passionate about?
Okay, that's an easy one. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Simple way to find out the drive. Yep, exactly. Yep. Perfect. Okay, guys. Well, appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Adios, muchachos.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.